fading. We gotta go. I'll get my car.
What mine?
Yours. I gotta get me one of those.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Bat Discussions. So, I saw the newest Dracula movie, The Last Voyage, what did I put? The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Yeah, I don't like long titles. No long titles. But anyways, I saw the movie recently, and I want to talk about it. Wanted to give my spoiler thoughts. So the person I'm bringing on today is another bat to talk vampires, and he actually did his own non-spoiler, spoiler light review on this movie, and I can't wait to bring him on here to really expand on his thoughts. So if you have not seen this movie yet, the link to his spoiler-free, spoiler light review is in the description. And I'm so happy to have this guy back on my channel, so please welcome the Bat-Channel.
Hey, how's it going? That was a very nice little thing. You have to put our video in the description. That's very kind of you, sir. Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you, my man. How you been?
I'm pretty good. Just doing a lot of videos, getting a lot of content in, and actually I hadn't said this to you yet publicly. Congratulations on your biggest milestone on your channel.
The
2K subscribers and the battalion.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, man. It's crazy. It was kind of just popped up one day, and it was like awesome. Like we wanted to get to that milestone for a while, and it's just crazy how quickly it kind of came up, and just shows how awesome our community is that we've all built together, and us like as content creators have like built each other up. So it's exciting. Things are coming. Super Bro Corey and I are working hard on big reveals soon for the channel, and kind of honestly the next step in the new generation of the Bat-Channel that I hope it propels us to a place, as we keep saying, like 10K is our goal right now, because we want to be able to do charity streams and not have to worry about the whole YouTube taking a portion out of it. But yeah, man, it all starts with people like you and people in the chat that I'm seeing. It's good to see some familiar faces who have just stuck with us all this time. So yeah, man, thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. It's just, I love seeing your channel. I love seeing your channel grow, and just like we all do. It's all, seeing firsthand, having just started a channel a year ago, how much effort it really takes to build a channel.
Right. Yeah, man. It was, and that was like the cool thing too, Beth. And it's like, I think you and I had talked about this the one time I was on your show, that it's like, it's crazy when, people like when I was, looking at possibly doing a YouTube channel, all the people I looked at and like really felt like, oh man, it would be cool to do what they're doing. And then you ask like, how do you do it? And they just say, do it. So then you're like, all right, well, I'll do it. And then it was like the same thing with you. You were always hanging around and just like had great thoughts. And it's just one of those things like, Bat Dan, you should just do it. Just do it. And then you do it. And it's kind of that cool, like trickle down, like you just, hopefully that's what social media should be, right? Like lifting each other up, building a community and having fun about the things that make us happy in life. Because we know there's enough craziness going on as is.
So I love the different YouTube communities I'm a part of. Sill Nation, pull this up, the Battalion.
Yes.
So many different YouTube communities supporting each other. And I really love it. And, it's actually your brother who really kind of gave me that final push. Because when I was on Zydwriter's channel for late night Q&A, Super Bro Corey was the one who put me on the spot in the chat, being like, so when is Bat Dan going to start doing his own YouTube channel?
He did the same for me, man. And it makes sense that he would do it to you too. You recognize good people. And when you recognize good people, you want their voices to be to be a major part of the community. And that's what you've done. I mean, look at you, man, already 260 subscribers. Like you're just building up. And that's the wonderful part, is just like getting to know strangers around the world and doing cool stuff like this, And
it's really fun. It's really fun to talk all these different topics with you. We met over DC, and now we're going to be actually talking about, we'll start by talking bats technically on this in today's show. I mean,
it's still a bat show.
Yeah, still a bat show. Vampires. And to kind of start this off, actually, what do you think about this? The box office disaster.
About the last voyage of the Demeter specifically?
Yeah, yes. And we can kind of compare a little bit too.
I'm not too surprised. It is sad that it didn't do as well as I know a lot of people are hoping. I think part of it was just I don't know. Some people would say they love it, and I could see why they would love it, and then it just didn't quite pull in the draw. I think the last big budget Dracula film was Dracula Untold, and we saw that was a bit of a box office disappointment. But that film has kind of gained love over the years, and a lot of people would like to see Luke Evans return and kind of continue that whole dark universe that Universal was doing. But yeah, it is sad that I think it did better than what they were expecting opening weekend. But I think they were hoping for more. I mean, who doesn't, right? Who wants to come into the box office and just absolutely crush it? Do you know the budget on the film? I'm totally spacing.
$45 million.
35 million said?
45.
45 million was the budget. Oh, okay. So, I mean, I don't think it was released in the UK yet, which is honestly because Bram Stoker, this book was released in the United Kingdom back in I want to say 1897. It was something like that. It was like late 1800s when the book was revealed. And obviously that being a huge popular thing that has lasted throughout generations. I'm sure it will do good in the UK when it's finally released there, but I mean, hopefully they can make their money back. They didn't do an insane amount of marketing for it.
They did not at all. I mean, I barely even knew about it, to be honest with you. And it's just so weird. Box offices are just so weird lately, though, to be honest. So this movie, it was 6.5 million was the number. And yet you have Barbie, which beat The Dark Knight recently.
Yeah, that I haven't seen Barbie, so I can't say, but from my friends and coworkers, they say it was pretty awesome. I probably won't go see it. Maybe I'll watch it when it's on streaming, but to me, it felt like, I'll put it this way. There was a story once when my wife, at the time she was my girlfriend, she took me to go see the Lego Batman movie. And I remember thinking babe, this is weird. This is a kid's show. I don't know. This is going to be awkward. And we're sitting in the theater, and yes, I am surrounded by kids and, parents, and people are kind of giving us that weird look of why are these two adults just here with no children? And I was just like, hey, I'm a Batman Batman fan. I have to watch this. And I actually really loved that movie. I thought Lego Batman movie was like a Batman ego, booster. But It would that from that moment on, I was kind of like, if there's ever like a movie that I feel like maybe like would get weird looks if I'm there, I probably won't show up. And Barbie was definitely one of them. You know, I don't see that I could sit in the theater and people just go like, what is this guy doing?
Surprised, so I did go see Barbie, and there weren't actually that many kids in the theater I saw it in.
That's
Well,
what I was surprised about too. When we went just this last weekend to go see the last Voyage of Demeter, it was still packed for Barbie. So I mean, it clearly brought out the nostalgia and all the audiences and people just coming back to see it. It's been crazy. I would have never thought.
Well, it's PG-13, so it's not even really a kids movie. But
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you, I didn't really like it that much. There were aspects of it I liked, and my review on that one's actually on my channel too, for anyone who has not seen it. So
I'll have to
check
look
it
at that
out.
too.
And I actually break the trend of overpraising the movie. I didn't totally hate on it, but I mean, yeah, I see why people think that. It was okay, not phenomenal, not great, and I will give a bit of a spoiler alert though. I think it was a better written film than the last voyage, and we'll get into that as we get going.
Sweet, sweet.
So I guess anything before you move on to the next topic, anything you want to kind of say about the box office?
Um, I wish it did better. I mean, I think it's only at like 9 million right now, just about. And um, I don't know. We'll have to see. Like you said, it hasn't been released in a lot of countries yet, so and it might not just because of the Christian aspects to it. You know, some countries don't accept that kind of
Right,
type of
yeah.
media. But I don't know. I don't think it deserves the amount of hate it's getting. Was I extremely disappointed in my spoiler free-ish review? Yes, but I was disappointed because I was really, I mean, if you saw our trailer reaction, like I was so freaking excited for this movie. I practically jumped out of my seat, like excited. And it didn't hit that same hype level once I saw. I was kind of like, all right.
And it's like one of those things, like sometimes, again, kind of similar to, actually, this is kind of a funny comparison, is that these are completely different movies, mind you. These are completely different movies, but something you said was the same criticism I had for this movie was Sausage Party, that movie. That was another movie where I thought all the good stuff was in the trailer and all the boring and the slow pacing was in the movie, which, you know, that's the Pixar parody with food being alive. All the
Yeah.
funny stuff was in the trailer.
Did that have what's his name? Seth Rogen?
Seth Rogen. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I think I watched that movie once and I was kind of like, man, if you're drunk, it's probably a great time, but I was like, this was a film that did not need to get made.
Yeah, I could get into that could be a whole nother conversation about my issues with that film. Well, I'll put it in very simple terms. Sex appeal jokes, when they're funny, they're really funny. But when they fall flat, they fall really flat. And that's Sausage Party for me.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I can't recall too much of it just because I think I watched it once and I was like, I'll like to erase that from my mind. But, you know, it's just one of those movies where I think you watch it just to see how outlandish it is, and then you're like, all right, that was good for me.
Yeah, exactly. And I would still say The Last Voyage. I'll still say The Last Voyage was still better than Sausage Party. I will give it that much.
Oh yeah. I mean, personally, I think The Last Voyage, all things considering, while I had issues with it, overall, like it is a good movie, especially the first and the second act. It kind of drags in the second act, but at least it's like a film that is like trying to be artistic, you know, it's trying to be a bit like fancy and take itself seriously. They just missed on a few themes that I feel like it could have been easily fix if they just took a second and said, hey, we don't need to make Dracula a complete badass monster. Like he doesn't, they focus too much on, we have this extremely awesome Dracula design that is vicious, terrifying, but that's it. You know, we got a great cast, but we're not gonna go for it with them. You know, we're just gonna, there he is. Enjoy. It became more of an, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you just actually transitioned us to our next topic.
Oh, sweet. See, we're on the same wavelength, my man.
But yeah, you can finish your thought real quick though.
I mean, I was just, with Dracula, I think part of the issue was they really kept calling out the Bram Stoker book. They even in the beginning of the movie, they like say, bam, Bram Stoker, chapter 7 of the novel. So you're like, oh, we're going to get a clear adaptation of that portion of the book, which isn't full on detailed. It's just basically captain logs. They do a little bit of a like where it starts after the whole voyage has crashed into England, basically, and then go into the captain's log. It's kind of like a mystery, but they definitely don't tell you like what happened to the crew. You basically can like reference that all of them died. They took some creative liberties that were like, you're basically trying to take a very small portion of the book and give it some filler. And it was filler that didn't need to happen. The movie should have been 30 minutes shorter.
Yeah, completely. And we'll definitely get into that later. But one thing I think I really can say that this movie had really well was its cast. I think it had, out of every issue, as many issues as this movie had, I think the cast was phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when you get like people like, I think his name is Corey Hawkins, who was in Straight Out of Compton, and he was also in Walking Dead for like a very few episodes. But like Liam Cunningham, even from like Game of Thrones, and he's been in so many other great films. Like there's a film that he did, I want to say early 2000s or late 90s, where it's called Dog Soldiers, and that is a underrated werewolf classic film. It's so good. And I want to say, did Richard Citrone work on that one? I'm not sure. I might be wrong on that, but he may have. But it's a good film. So I mean, they had so many things that made this film like, oh, this could be fantastic. And I felt like they just didn't do it,
Yeah, I agree, because it kills me because I as I said, I love the cast. I thought Corey Hawkins, his character was he did a very good job of kind of portraying that doctor who's trying to make his way in the world and kind of being the moral compass of the crew. Portraying that one guy who actually wants to save the stowaway while everyone else wants to throw her off deck.
Yeah, with like, it just kind of, they did a great job of like keeping the essence of the character throughout the story. Like once they reveal his background, his origins towards the end of the film, like, but you can tell like he's a doctor. He will always have that Hippocratic oath that he's, take care of people, try to increase the betterment of life, and treat it with the respect, all those things that make a doctor, right? What you would expect out of that character. And he did a wonderful job throughout keeping that. It was because of that, like they gave him this great origin story, this great motivation to his life, that I was like, when we got to the third act and the decision he makes, I was kind of like, you lost me, because he's clearly intelligent. He's a very smart individual and hardworking, and takes the time to really analyze everything. And then you make him do something incredibly stupid, just to give Dracula a moment where he just takes everyone out. Like that doesn't work for me.
Yeah. See, and that was more of the issue with the writing as opposed to the cast.
Yeah.
And there's like so many great actors in this movie, because not just Corey Hawkins, but Anna, the actress is Anna. I'm looking up her name right now. Alice. How do you pronounce that? Alice Lane.
I had no idea. I tried to say it during our spoiler-free review, and I was like, nope, that didn't work. So I just said the female lead. I think it's Aileen. I can't say her last name. I Franciosi. I don't know. I won't even try. I apologize for completely disastrous attempt, but
We can joke. It's not as big of a deal as a small little recording. But yeah, I just again another. But anyway, my train of thought got lost for a second. Yeah, but she just played this real badass character. Again, not necessarily her writing, but the actress did a really good job playing this character who's lived under Dracula's control all this time and is finally ready to regain her freedom, finally ready to fight back. And she just, I really feel like this character played a really, again, from the acting alone, played a really intelligent character.
yeah, and she did a wonderful job just kind of playing with she's like the victim, but at the same time, it's this moment of opportunity to kind of break the chains from Dracula. Because I mean, this is a movie that kind of it tries to reinvent vampires a little bit with the creature design element to it, but at the same time, they understand there's certain things where like Dracula throughout cinematic history has always had kind of that seduction, and not so much in this movie through the sexual element of it, but through more of like he's mind controlling, he's inside your head making you do things. And it was cool to kind of see an essence of that aspect, especially with one of the crew members when he kind of went this zombie vampire route. There was, like I said, some great elements, and they had wonderful actors giving us great performances, but just the writing didn't elevate their performances. It kind of hindered them a bit.
I got a little distracted. I just saw your dog for a second. It was weird because like your dog's head wasn't. It was on the other side. Your dog's head wasn't showing, so it's like I just saw a big white thing, and all of a sudden it was moving. And
just a fluffy.
but yeah, you're right. Exactly. It's the writing didn't help the cast, and another character. There's so many great actors. Like again, I love Liam Cunningham. I just like he has one of those voices. You know, when a certain actor just has a voice and everything they say, just no matter what, he could literally say, "I like to eat poop," and it would just, I don't know, there's something about it that would just sound.
It's because he's British, isn't it? No, yeah, he's so iconic. I mean, and I think he plays roles that you tend to like him because he's always kind of that mentor figure. The way he was in Game of Thrones, the way he was even in Dog Soldiers. And so when you see him, you kind of instantly look at him as like, I can get behind this guy. He's a protagonist. He's the one that's going to lead us through this nightmare of a voyage. But even him, I felt like his story, like while he gave wonderful performances, and this particular chapter of the book definitely focuses on the captain because it's based on his captain's log. I felt like when they decided to kind of change their focus away from him, I felt like that was kind of a disservice to him, because in the book, the idea of service and getting the job done, essentially, he's like a true seaman of a captain, and to the point where, and they kind of hinted at it in the book, which do you want me to talk about the third act with him? And we can wait if you have like a set plan in place.
Yeah, there's actually a section specifically for you to talk about the differences of the book and the movie.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, then we'll go into that a little bit. So stay tuned, smash that like, and invite your friends to the chat. Do it.
I know you will, Trey. I knew that you'd want to talk about the differences of the book and the movie, so I'm like, I'm going to give him his own section for that.
Just like basically Trey just going off saying nonsense.
But yeah, and you're right with Liam Cunningham, though. It's the kind of the same thing, because I'm used to him being kind of Jon Snow's mentor figure and trying to be the moral compass of that other king, the one who killed his daughter, I think it was.
Yeah. How he was affected by that. I don't think do you say was he the one that killed the king's daughter?
No, he was the one who was trying to guide the king.
He was the king. But the king listened to the what was her name? Was it Red Queen? No, or Red Fire Lady, whatever she was, in Game of Thrones. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
And, speaking of the kid, that little kid though. Speaking of that, is I thought the actor who played, again, I have to look. I'm so bad with
Toby?
names. Yes, Toby.
Yeah.
Woody Norman as Toby. That was another one who, like, another good kid actor. Because kid actors are always very hit or miss to me, and I felt like he was a pretty good kid actor.
He was phenomenal. And see, that was like one of those things where I was confused by their shift in focus with the characters, because the relationship between him and his grandfather, Liam Cunningham's character, to me, that was the sweet side, the focus, and where they should have kept it going, because that was a strong element. That was, his motivation to keeping his grandchild safe, and the kid was doing just an incredible job. Like, seriously, for, I don't know how old the kid was when he filmed this, but his performance for a horror film, nonetheless, I felt like he didn't like overperformed. He was in it, and just like, he was believable. And for a kid at that age, like, bravo, dude. Like, he's going to be a rock star.
Yeah, definitely. And I look forward to seeing a lot of great opportunities for him. Because the thing is, no matter how bad a movie is, there's always people out there looking for talent. And if they see a good actor, even in a bad movie, in a not so great movie, then they'll still get work. Oh, we got Taladia in the chat. What up, Taladia? Thanks
What's
for
up,
stopping
brother?
by. But yeah, and even like the background characters, like a lot of the crew members were all really good actors, even some of these no-named characters.
Well, yeah, they even had a guy who's big in the comic book world. David Dasmalchian. Is that how you pronounce it?
You're talking about the guy who looks like Cillian Murphy, but is not Cillian Murphy?
Does he look like so? I guess he kind of does now that, like a gothier version of Cillian Murphy. Yeah.
Because in The Dark Knight, I thought when he was Shiv Thomas, I was so confused because I thought that was Jonathan Crane still.
Right. Yeah, no, he's been in so many diverse roles, and he's a brilliant writer. For the comics that he's been doing as well. This whole Monster Hunter book that he's I think he's on his second volume now. But yeah, a movie set up for success with the cast. Literally, the supporting cast, great. The main cast, phenomenal. It lacked the writing.
Yeah, definitely lacked the writing, and we'll get to that soonish. But now I kind of want to talk about the overall atmosphere of the movie. Like, what did you think about that?
Like, tonally of how it was?
Yeah, kind of many things, like the tone, the setting, did it feel like it captured that nice horror element?
There's some things they did get right. Like, I felt like the feeling of being on a ship and a long voyage. I definitely felt that. I felt like I was on a long voyage in the ship. It did feel claustrophobic in a way, because when you think about it, like when they have you inside the ships, in the barracks, basically, when they're hunting for Dracula, or like when Dracula's lurking below, you can feel the claustrophobicness of that and the terror of that. At the same time, you feel the open world once they're on deck, and that's open ocean and things like that. But you also feel the isolation that comes with being in the open ocean. So it's kind of that terror of like, there's really nowhere to run with this thing. So it's kind of the worst case possible that you could ever think. So you definitely get those elements, and in a way that is kind of horrific. For me, though, where it lacked was, and I think I said this in our review, it needed more of a Jaws element where you didn't quite see Dracula, where it was kind of jump scares, really going, to the mysterious side, to where, like, is he there? Is he in the shadows? Is he just looking at you and you have no idea? I also would have been down if they went for more of a thriller aspect, where the crew was starting, because they start to get, even in the books, they're staying up late because they're worried that Dracula's going to come for them, and they didn't even know it was Dracula in the books. They just thought it was just some monster, some creature was eating them. So the fact that they had this girl on the ship that was immediately like, it's Dracula and he's coming to kill you all, kind of it took the threat away a bit, the mysteriousness, the kind of part of the scary factor, and kind of what they say in Batman Begins, right? Men tend to fear what they cannot see. And I think if they would have played into that a little more, rather than, when he is kind of lurking around them, that they wouldn't give these full on glimpses of him. Like if they did a shadow, I think that would have been smart. So in terms of jump scare horrors, I think they failed a bit.
I agree with that. So, like, I feel like they could have. There was no issue I had personally with her saying his name was Dracula, but I agree with, and you said this, and you did kind of say this in your spoiler light review too, is that he did. We should have not seen him. I agree with that completely. It would have created a much better effect if there was this mysterious figure. I don't even mind him being called Dracula, but just this mysterious figure being around. Because I think in the movie audience, you wanted to let the general audience would need to know, if you're going to have the monster be Dracula, you have to kind of tell the general audience that it's Dracula. So
yeah,
I get that, but as you say, in Oracle's Clock Tower says, the Jaws effect, because you're on a ship, and I agree, like what you said, like I like that same setting. You're on a ship, you're trapped, you're away. There's no one to call for help. You can't get on. You can't. I guess I'm trying to like something that was around in the 1800s, but you can't get on a carriage and fly and get it as far away as possible. Just no, too much. You're trapped, and I like that, and just seeing like being on that ocean, being on that open ocean in the day, and like the day and nighttime scenes too. I love the contrast of those two scenes, because it's just like real life. When you're in the woods, being during the day, it's kind of a nice, relaxing setting, and then at nighttime, it's scary, and just when you're out camping or just a nature hike, or if you're at a lake house not that's kind of in the middle of nowhere. Daytime is great, nighttime is scary, and that's what kind of the ship communicated too. It's like during the day, it's not that bad out. Dracula's asleep, hiding somewhere. Whereas at nighttime, you get that very scary setting, and I love the contrast. I wish, and this is why I kind of say for the atmosphere, I wish they had more daytime scares where like they're downstairs or downstairs below deck, somewhere where the sun's not out, so Dracula could still potentially get them.
Yeah, and there were some shots, they did great, like when Toby is in the captain's barracks, and the kid looks under the table and he doesn't see anything, and then when he looks over, and then there he is, bam. But to have him kind of, and I get what they were trying to do, because like the thought processes in this moment is that Dracula's been traveling for a while. He hasn't had blood to drink, so he's ill, he's sickly, he's not up to full prime strength yet. So he is going to be like crawling a little more and weaker and kind of groaning and just look like he's kind of just an ill homeless person, basically. But to me, in a way, you kind of seeing him in a weakened state kind of made it not as terrifying. And I feel like maybe, like, while I get what they were going for and it was a cool idea, I think if you're going to tell us this is the most terrifying Dracula we've ever seen, you gotta give him that. You gotta make him just one of those scenes that larger than life. There's no hope for you. And I know they kind of did that, but it's when you see something kind of vulnerable, it kind of, your mindset tells you like, oh, this thing can be beaten,
Yeah, and delving into a lot of the moments where there were so many points where Dracula could have been beaten if the crew members were actually, smart.
Yeah.
And there's many moments, and we'll definitely get into that later. But yeah, I feel like overall, again, the atmosphere itself was good, but as I agree with you, they should have given more jump scares. And if you're gonna make Dracula scares ever, again, the Jaws effect would be good, because the thing is, your mind is always gonna hit up a better picture than what's actually shown. That's just reality.
Absolutely. And that's part of what made some films like even more terrifying, like for a great example, Tremors. That was a great I think that Universal did that one as well. And the fact that they had only shown you the like snake tentacle things that came out of the graboid's mouth until the really the almost the very end where they finally show you the graboid, and you're like, oh, like it's scary, it's kind of freaks you out. And they partly did that because of it was a low budget sci-fi film. They couldn't show you the creature all the time. It was the same crap that they dealt with Jaws. They didn't want to show you the creature so much because they really couldn't afford it, and the creature kept breaking. It would have been smart to let our imagination freak us out more than actually showing us the creature throughout the film.
Exactly, and then it would have really benefited the film a lot more if they did that. It's funny though, because it's kind of like the low budget ended up helping these horror films a lot more.
In a weird way, yeah, it did, right? That's a wonderful point.
Yeah, and it just shows, Trey, how low budget horror films can be really good sometimes.
Some that should never be made though.
Yeah, actually, and believe it or not, we're actually going to talk about that later on too.
I knew it. I had a feeling that you would ambush me with some Winnie the Pooh.
Yep, that will be a topic later on as well. So you put it like this: you have your solo topic, I'm going to have my solo topic too. I haven't seen Blair Witch Project, but have you seen that, Trey?
A long time ago. Yeah, that's a great example where I think in the Blair Witch Project you never see the witch. I don't think you never see the antagonist throughout. It's all through point of view, camera handheld, which worked in a lot of ways. Great example. Cloverfield, the first Cloverfield film, the fact that you never see the creature really until like towards the end, it helped that film. It became like a cult kaiju film that a lot of people love to this day. So, and it's partly because they didn't show the creature so much.
Exactly, and I just wish that some of these higher budget films like Blair Witch Project would learn from that and just not show the creature as much. So, yeah, I mean, I think overall, I think a good atmosphere, certain bits that were ruined by that, but the ideal what they were going for, like being on the ship, it did kind of create that scary atmosphere. So again, kind of a mixed bag there, but
they took the situation as that's what should be extremely scary without actually scaring you, essentially. Exactly. Which they're not wrong. The situation would be absolutely terrifying. Like I said, you're isolated on a ship, nowhere to go. I mean, yeah, you could jump overboard and hope the sharks don't get you, but at that time, especially with superstitions, and they kind of played at that too with some of the superstitions, like, oh, you have a woman on board, that's bad luck, because that was true. They all had this intense superstitious nature of traveling on a boat, that these guys would really freak out. They believed in sea monsters. They believed in the supernatural. So it makes sense that for them, this creature would be kind of the sign of death, because they did all the things wrong. They had a woman on board. They had didn't do their final prayers or stuff like that. It's all the
way. I think was the main issue was that she was a stowaway.
A stowaway, yeah, that was another one as well.
Which she technically wasn't, because she was kidnapped on board. I guess technically Dracula was the stowaway. You're not really.
Technically, he was cargo. He was just a piece.
Well, then technically the woman was too.
Fair point. It's just Amazon Prime shipping.
Yeah, if Amazon ever delivers me a Dracula, they would so do that though. They would so. I could see them cutting corners by just sneaking Dracula on the packages. How that would cut corners, I don't know, but yep, next day shipping. you know, but Amazon does keep, you know, to be fair, with their shipping, they have very good pacing when it comes to getting their packages done on time. So
It's because they have little Dracula bats flying them around and dropping them off at your doorstep.
they would so do that, though. They would so do that, to be honest.
Probably. Well, they were talking about doing. I know we're in sidetrack, but they were talking about doing drone deliveries, I think.
Yeah, that sounds. Oh my god, that sounds too similar to AI and AI taking actors' jobs. You're gonna have drones take delivery drivers' jobs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I'll just say real quickly, since I brought it up, I stand with the writers and the actors. I want them to get their fair deal, and I want entertainment to keep. Well, actually, I don't know if I want the writer strike to end completely soon, based on what Mikey Sun has said recently, that the writer strike is actually good for the Cell movement.
Oh,
the writers and actors strike is because Netflix won't have content which will get Zack Snyder's Justice League on Netflix.
Interesting.
So, but unselfishly speaking, I want the writers and actors to get their fair deal. They deserve it. So we'll put that little PSA in there. But speaking of, okay, I was gonna say speaking of P's, but that the both stuck pacing and I don't wait. What was the other? Oh, PSA. That was the other P. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, what'd you think of the pacing of this movie?
I thought it was slow. That was way too slow. I mean, and especially when they finally get to the final battle where they kind of just breeze through everything. It felt like they dragged. There was a few things they dragged on way too long that didn't need to be dragged on, and it because of that, it lacked the emotional weight and importance. You know, I felt like when I was watching it, it broke my heart the first time they did something, but then when they kind of, I'll put it this way. One of the biggest pacing issues I felt like they did in this movie was when they killed off Toby the first time. When Toby gets eaten by Dracula, first off, that was a shocker, you know, because it was like, I did not expect him. Usually when you throw like a kid in a horror film, the kid is always safe because Hollywood used to consider that like an area you don't cross. I mean, it was a big thing when Jaws did it, you know, like everyone was like, oh my God, you can't do that. But it kind of set the tone. And when you had Dracula do this awful, brutal thing of tearing apart this kid, you're like, oh, you know, you're feeling it. You're like, oh my God, like they went there. And to have it all of a sudden be like, well, he's not actually dead yet. There's a chance he might still be alive. They're putting blood in him. They're basically doing the same thing that they did with the female lead, giving the kid blood transfusions every couple of hours. And so you're thinking, well, okay, if she survived, maybe he could too, you know? But at some point, if you're a vampire fan, you all know what happens when you get bitten by a vampire. I mean, in some cases, they say you have to drink the blood of the vampire, but here you kind of know if you're bitten, something's about to go down. And especially after seeing one of the crew members who got bit, he turned into something. But the fact that they kind of prolonged it, and they gave you this sense of hope that like, oh, he could come around, and then nope, he died again. And it was like, well, now we know what's going to happen. He's just going to come back. It would have been better if they just said he died. We're going to put him overboard, give him a sailor's death and funeral, and then have him come back as a vampire. But to say he died, no, he didn't. He could still live, but he died actually. And oh wait, but he's a vampire now. Like it was kind of like we didn't need to spend 20 minutes doing that.
You know what that kind of remind me of though? The whole Glenn issue in Walking Dead when they killed off his character, how they gave him that fake death in season 6. So then when Negan kills him for real in season 7, it loses a lot of that impact because we already thought he died.
Well, you know, in a way, I think they did that for simply the essence to make you think that was if you've read the comics by Robert Kirkman, you know, issue 100, when they get to that moment of Negan, it's a big deal. And I think everyone was expecting that, oh, Negan's going to kill Glenn. He's going to kill Glenn. I think they were trying to trick the audience by saying, no, we already tried to kill Glenn off. So you think he's going to be safe. But everyone in the comics who've read the comics were like, well, that's Negan. He's clearly going to kill Glenn. And then when they started season 7 with Abraham's brains bashed in, they're like, first off, shocker. And then it was kind of like, oh, but Glenn's safe. But then that's where they get you. And they're like, nope, I got Glenn too. Like, suckers, you know. It was a smart. Me personally, I thought that was a smart move on the TV show's part, AMC, because it caught you off guard, and while people were expecting it to happen, it threw the people who are comic book readers off just enough that when it does happen, not only does it pay off the comic book the readers, but it gave them the moment of rather than I knew it was coming.
But again, I think that's kind of thing. Like, you have to be careful about how you do that, though, because you want to trick the audience, because they're still the general audience too. So
yeah,
but that's mainly so. Well, anyway, so like from my point of view, that's kind of what it felt like. And I agree. Like, they could have easily. I wouldn't have even minded, honestly, if they, let's say, had him kind of try to do it just for like 2 minutes of screen time, just so that like the audience doesn't question, wait, why didn't they try to save him the same way they saved her? But they could have just done that in like 2 minutes. They could have had like, he's dying. They have like a 2-minute session, and then
he's bleeding out right there and giving him the blood transfusions, and then seeing him die. He's thinking there could be hope. It just felt like, to me, they didn't need to do this back and forth thing and to basically to show that the grandfather has no reason to live anymore. It was a very prolonged downward slope for the captain that it lost the gravity that it should have had the first time. Well, that it did kind of have in the first time, but they ruined,
And something you just kind of said there, I didn't really like the way they kind of showed like the grandpa going all crazy all of a sudden, like about to kill everyone on the crew. I was just kind of like, why? That just didn't really make a lot of sense. Like, that was another kind of pacing issue. They could have cut that out completely, and no one would have complained about that, because I understand him maybe wanting to kill himself, but wanting to kill the entire crew is what it felt like. He was like willing.
And not only that, you took yes, it needed to happen at some point. You had to take away his motivation, his reason to go on, to make his end more tragic. But that's where I say you need to keep the focus on him, because he really is the most tragic story. They were setting him up to be the most tragic story, not Clemens. Yeah, Clemens has obviously, through his backstory, he has lived a very troubled and difficult life. But when you think about it, he graduated from school and he's a doctor. Like, he's had, like you said, troubled life, but he's young, and there's time to go on for him to figure it out. But like with the captain, they make you feel for him because he has a grandchild. But not only that, he has dreams for his grandchild to build him a house in Ireland, so that they can live happily and enjoy the life of a countryman. And then to also say, this is my last trip, I'm done after this. So you're giving this sense of hope and like, oh man, he almost like made it out of all of this. If he just would have said, before this trip, that the ship, the voyage that he had before was going to be his last one, but they had to tug at your heartstrings to have him say, this is my last one, live my days with my grandson. And then to make him crazy was kind of just, like you said, it wasn't really needed for his character, at least not to drag it out the way they did.
Yeah, exactly. That was definitely an issue I really had. They dragged his character out, and like the beginning pacing of the movie wasn't so bad, I felt like. I know some people thought the first act was slow. I had no issues with the first act kind of slowly building that up, and like, so I'm going to kind of tell you a thing when I watch movies. I could see a million humans die and I could care less, but I see one dog die and I'm just like, oh, like I get more sad when the dog dies than when the humans die. Same whole thing with the Meg. I was like, please don't kill that dog. You can kill all these humans all you want. That's fine.
And see, in the second movie, I was like, please, we got to end this dog. Like the fact that this little tiny thing has survived the Meg twice now, it got to a point where it's like, this thing's ridiculous. It's unkillable. But like, no, I agree with you. And they know that, right? The writers know. It's kind of that funny thing where like, you can kill humans off, but the moment you kill a dog, a nice cuddly dog, now you're trash. Now you're the epitome of evil, and to me, it kind of reminded me of a scene in Alien 3 when the alien burst out of the dog. It was like that awful thing that everyone's like, oh, this thing is terrible. It's gruesome and disgusting. That fact that they killed a dog this way. And it's a way to kind of show the brutality of a creature sometimes, when they kill man's best friend and honestly, the thing that we know would kind of comfort us and give us protection, they rip it away from you. So it's always a smart idea, but it's becoming repetitive now with any horror film to kill off the pet.
Yeah, I get that. I guess I haven't seen that many horror films too, so maybe I don't know. To me, that one though, it felt like the way they did it in this film. I think it really worked really well. As much as I hated them killing the dog, I still felt like it worked well in starting with the animals, because that's kind of how you do it. You start with all the animals, because then maybe it's not the vampire, maybe it's just again a dog who had rabies, and it felt like that mystery. Like they didn't drag on that mystery too long, at least on that end. The only thing that felt dragged on was once someone saw Dracula, it's like, and the humans started dying, and there were still people like, oh, there's nothing going on here. I'm like, come on. There's being a skeptic, and there's being in denial, and that's
I kept thinking that they were gonna like. I when I was watching the film, I really thought like Clemens maybe knew more than what he was letting on. Like I thought maybe it would be revealed that he was like Renfield or something, like Dracula's servant, because it was one of those things where like they had some weird dialogue where he was like, whatever this thing is doing it, not that I believe it, but let's say we believe it for a second. And it was like, wait, what? He's like, but I only believe in science, and something is draining everyone's blood. And it's like, okay, do you believe in this thing or do you not believe in this thing? I'm confused. Or are you just saying, okay, I'll for a moment, I'll indulge you guys that there's this creature on board that's draining everyone's blood, which scientifically I'm seeing everything that says that, but I'm not going to believe it, because I don't want to. And it was like, he even said that too. I think he was like, you just don't believe in things because you don't want to, but maybe if we had to, like someone who drank and wrote that line was like, okay.
Yeah, that was a weird scene. And but that's like the issue. It's like, we don't need to see people not believe in this stuff for like 2 seconds. It's like for like 10 minutes. It's like, it's obvious. There's a certain point where it's obvious that there's something on board. And for me and again, we don't know what, as Red Hood Outlaw says, you said drunk writing. That's what it was, is that the writers were, that was just, I don't get it. That just didn't really work for me as well. And the second act dragged on a little bit. It was like going all these nights and days where it just feels like nothing actually happened. I'm like, Dracula's the most patient vampire ever sometimes.
Right? Like when you think about it, he's like tearing apart sometimes 1 to 2 people a night. And it took them so long and granted, in the book, it does take them a little bit. Like, I think it all goes down within a month throughout the captain's log. But part of the thing is, and they didn't quite really go into this, and which is why I said in our trailer reaction, like, it'd be cool if they really went with this paranoid thriller where they're turning on each other because they think one of them may have done it, who's killing all those people, or maybe one of them is Dracula, and he's always in our view and we had no idea it was him, because in the book, Oh, and see, I know we're doing a book versus movie portion here, but I'll just say this real quick. They stay awake. Once they start to realize people are dying, the captain puts everyone like on like 24-hour rotations, like switching people in and out, but they're so paranoid that they can't go to sleep at night or during the day whenever their shift is, to the point where they're tired, they're weak, they're not eating really well because all the livestock is dead. So it creates this moment of where everyone is like stressed the hell out and is full of anxiety. And you didn't really feel a ton of that in this movie. There was moments, but like you didn't feel the paranoia, the complete utter fear that like you didn't like when the captain told you you're on shift tonight to protect the crew, which basically meant you're dead, which is why some of them in the book abandon ship and like try to run away. They kind of hinted at one case in this movie, but it happens a lot more in the book.
I think that's just part of it too, is the book has more time to draw it out, but it's like, again, they could have,
which is funny because it's a short portion of the book. It's very short. It's one chapter.
But we got to say 20 minutes of Toby may or not dying, 20 minutes of people possibly thinking it's not a vampire after all. Just it's stuff like that just didn't quite do it for me. And see, the third act, I don't know if I want to get into the third act because I don't know if that's really a pacing issue or writing it. Yeah, see, third act
I would say it's more of a writing issue because it was so quick. It was a fast third act because it was just action,
And I think kind of part of it, I'll say the only thing with the pacing too is there's a certain point I just lost track of who's left in the crew. Like, because there's so many crew members, and it's like the point it's like, oh wait, Clemens and Anna are the only one left. And I just didn't, like, it clicked it for a second. It's like, oh, okay, I guess the rest of the crew is dead now. So I feel like that's kind of the only pacing issue I maybe had with the third act, is just not. And again, maybe just because there's so many crew members to begin with, and not all of them, a lot of them are just kind of background characters, really. So maybe that's partly why too. I don't know. I guess what's your opinion on that?
I mean, I felt like they did a good job focusing on, they kind of had moments where they let every crew member, or at least the ones that you see, kind of have their moment where you care about them. You kind of feel something because they're just these people dealing with this horrible thing. But I mean, yeah, there were certain things they did where, yeah, they probably could have removed some of it, remove some of the background characters from, creating empty story that you kind of know. They really just were there to kind of create depth so they could not get to their, like, kill off their main characters just yet. But yeah, I could see where you say that.
Yeah, so that was like my main issue of the third act. So for pacing, but before we get to what's going to be the main kind of thing that we're probably going to rant about, I could swear for another hour, but we're going to get to one good thing too. In at least my opinion, this was a good thing. So not necessarily that Dracula should have been hidden or not. I do agree he should have been hidden, but once he was shown, once you saw that design, what did you think of the Dracula design?
I loved the design. I've always preferred kind of a more beast style of Dracula. Like I like kind of being able to go back and forth where he's more the humanoid version, like a Bela Lugosi looking thing, and then kind of going into that beast mode. Still to this day, one of my favorite Dracula films, and I know it's not really a Dracula film, but Van Helsing with Hugh Jackman and Kate Beckinsale. That movie, not only did that actor do a wonderful job of playing a Bela Lugosi style Dracula, but when he turns into the monstrous side of him, that was terrifying, but also like badass looking. And in this, they kind of just went with like the extremely terrifying looking Dracula that I kind of wish, and it was very Nosferatu Dracula, especially at the end when they did that little teaser to a potential sequel. Which is cool because that was one of the first films ever made, one of the silent films of Nosferatu that absolutely horrified people. So it was cool that they kind of went back to that design because we haven't seen too much of that style of vampire. I liked it. I kind of wish when they went prime Dracula beast mode that he was a little more beefed up a little bit, rather than he was still kind of this lengthy, kind of unusual alien looking thing. But all in all, still incredibly cool.
I liked him being lengthy, kind of skinny, because I think it worked really well for when he was trying to blend into the human society at the end. I think that's when him being kind of skinny, I don't know, it helped kind of hide more. So I didn't necessarily mind the skinny part for that reason.
It works definitely through the beginning portion, you know, as he's like transitioning, as he's kind of transforming, as he gets stronger and stronger. Because once again, I'll save it because I know we're getting to the book versus movie, but that was directly connected to the book in terms of his initial figure of how they view him as a pale, tall, lengthy man.
Okay, so yeah, I can't wait to see more when you kind of get into that in the book versus movie. So I get what you're saying. Like, so like it works in certain areas. It works in like there's parts of it that works, parts of it doesn't. So I can kind of see both sides to that. But overall, I thought he did have a really good design. I felt like the design was scary, the design was intimidating, and even like when he kind of and I like that he talks so very seldomly in the movie. Like he doesn't talk that often, but when he does, that makes it when kind of like Winnie the Pooh, when he does actually talk, it's a lot more intimidating. And there were certain points that Dracula was kind of mumbling a little bit where I was like, wait, what did you say? Like, it's okay if you want to have them do a monster roar type of thing, but if we're supposed to understand them, make us understand him. Because there was a certain point I was like, what? I need subtitles. It was I don't know. He yelled at something on the ship after someone, like some sort of threat, and I'm like, I didn't hear that.
Oh, I think it was something like "There is no God." It was something like that. If I recall that particular scene, yeah, it was definitely an interesting take on Dracula for sure, because everything we've seen in pulp culture and different films in the past, they usually reference Dracula, and especially in the book, that he's a very intelligent man, you know, that he's lived a long life and has experienced a lot. He's very wise. And in a way, it's kind of a Beauty and the Beast tale because of his relationship with Jack's wife and stuff like that in the book. But he's also in this movie, it was kind of like a weird version to see of him where he was more beast than a man who could like do science, because he is that intelligent. He could do science. He is a brilliant master planner, you know. And in this, it was kind of just more of like, I'm a creature eating you. There is no God. And rather than, which was, I liked that when he started talking, I was like, yes, that is more of Dracula, because he would tease you like that. He would want to kind of create this sense of there is no afterlife. There, you know, there's only damnation, basically. Because that's kind of his tragic tale. But they didn't really give you that essence. It was just kind of a creature that could speak rather than a man behind the beast, you know?
Maybe it would have worked, I guess, is that maybe at the end of the movie, you kind of saw him once he filled up on enough blood, kind of transition to more of a human looking creature. Because he's supposed to blend in, but you look at him, he has a top hat and he's dressed in like human clothes, but he still looked like a vampire. If someone was sitting across the table from him in the light, that didn't know he was allowed to be in light, but anyways, he would still look scary. People would be like, oh my God, look at that freak right there. So if he kind of looked enough like a human, like enough that Clemens could recognize him and the viewers would recognize him as Dracula. But yeah, I feel like that would have probably saved that a little bit.
Yeah, and they really could have used it to their advantage in the sense that if he could kind of transition, you know, and transform, which Dracula can, and they do it in this where he can transform. But like to have him maybe when he's in his more human-like form, he could dress up like one of the sailors, and that could be the jump scare where you're thinking you're working next to your crewman, and then there he is next to you when no one's looking and getting you and throwing you overboard, you know, so no one sees that it got you. There could have been so much that they could have done to make us have the paranoia of like, who's doing this, you know, who's getting our people, rather than we just know he's out there looming about. But the truth is, the scary thing about Dracula is he could be your friend. He could be the person next to you, and you might not notice until it's too late.
Yeah, and that's where they probably should have had him be one of the crew members, because that's the only way that the human form would really work in that, is that if he was one of the crew members. Because like someone that they knew, like a character that we see them talking to, and maybe he, I don't know, does something really heroic in the beginning of the movie. I don't know. I mean, it's
That would have been interesting.
Because he's also outside, and the crew's also in the daylight though too, and Dracula can't be in the daylight in this movie, I mean, not that the writers really realize that logic, and we'll get into that later. We'll get into that very soon. But yeah, so maybe not actually, now that I think about it, but I don't know. There's some way they could have worked it out. I feel like they could have maybe, I don't know, given him a top hat or some sort of like clothing to protect him a little bit. I don't know. There was some way they could have worked out the human form, because I do think most of the time when he's just attacking people on the boat, there's no really need for that human form. But when he's trying to blend in, you need that human form.
Yeah, it could just be one of those scenes when he goes in for the kill, you know, he like transforms into that beast mode. It could be just that primal thing with him, you know, where he's hiding as a human ish thing, and then when the moment's right, like the primalness in him, the need for blood, the obsession, you know, kind of takes over his mindset and he can't focus. And that's kind of a cool thing too when you think about, like, there's that mind, the human portion of him that's thinking and trying to plan and not tip his hat before he has to, and then there's the primal side of him, the beast mode, that goes, I need food, you know, that he can't control. I mean, that's kind of a cool, like, Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing going on. That would have been cool.
There's so many things they could have done more with Dracula, but I mean, the beast design that they had, it did look good, it did look scary, but unfortunately, no matter how something scary is, it's something that is only as scary if the writing is good. And before we get to the
writing was
obvious,
definitely scary.
Yeah, not in a good way. One thing that I kind of want to bring up, because before I forget about this, I did not like the flash forward in the beginning of the movie. I feel like, and maybe this is more of a pacing issue, but that opening act where it's obvious that Dracula won right in the beginning, I did not like that, because I want to believe, watching this movie, that maybe the crew does win. Maybe the crew does beat Dracula. But because of that flash forward in the beginning of the movie, I knew as a first-time viewer, not having read the book, not having read any reviews, just seeing the movie, I knew that that Dracula was going to win. There was no need for that flash forward in the beginning of the movie.
I'll talk about it later, because it's a
okay. But I mean, and maybe it's executed better in the book. I don't know, but that was one issue, and I guess the other issue, and I know we both have the same issue. In fact, the instant the first crew member dies of sunlight, and burns up in the fire, that was the moment the crew should have been, aha! We know how to beat him now. Like,
that's the part that absolutely, like, that's where it completely lost me. Like, I was cool with, like, the fact that the crew member got burned up by the sunlight, the kid gets burned up by the sunlight, because obviously we're starting to see a theme here. And even Anna is like weakened and doesn't feel as strong in the sunlight, so they're hinting at her kind of big reveal, which wasn't really a big reveal at the end. But like, the fact to me, it was like, when Clemens created the plan that we're going to sink the ship and abandon it, but we're going to set a plan that while we're sinking the ship, we're going to shoot at Dracula. I was like, why are we doing this at night? Have you not learned anything? Like, you've seen now not one, but two people burn in sunlight after being bitten by this thing. You would start to think that, like, oh, that's his weakness. But not only that, just logically, it's like he only kills at night. And granted, we can't find him during the daylight, which hints at he has a weakness there. Why wouldn't you either try to sink the ship during the daylight so he drowns? Because, and granted, we don't know if Dracula could drown, but he's a doctor. He would think somewhat logically in the sense that if we sink the ship, he's either going to sink to the bottom and drown, or he's going to be forced to come out in the sunlight and burn to death. But no, let's wait at night so we can shoot at him. No one wants to ask Anna, who apparently has had families of generations deal with Dracula, if he can fly, two, or anything about Dracula's back history other than he eats people and that he's been feasting on her all this time. What does he look like? Give us any information. She kind of just said he drinks me every night. I'm just his food, when he's on long travels. Okay, cool. Like, what more can you tell me? Plot. I can tell you plot points. I can't tell you because we're leading into this moment where we have to see Dracula annihilate people. And to me, that was like the moment, like, okay, we're clearly like putting like plot armor here for Dracula, when it's like, if they wanted to completely kind of throw the book out at that moment, which they kind of did. If they wanted to throw the book out and just kind of do the thing, it would have been like, okay, well, maybe Dracula, when he's at full strength, can actually last in the sun, or the sun doesn't bug him as much. They could have done something like that. I don't care. But to me, it was like, you have this really intelligent character who has shown his intelligence throughout, because clearly when he tells his origin story of, because I'm a black man and I graduated from college, which that alone was a huge achievement, but he had to prove that he was one of the best of his class. But when he got out, no one would give him a chance. Nonetheless, he is still a highly intelligent man and has worked to be highly intelligent. And to have him do something so idiotic was such a disservice to his overall character arc that I was like, you lost me. You ruined him. You made his character like pointless throughout this entire movie. And if anything, he was kind of their downfall in that entire thing. So that's the master plan in that movie. Was the moment where I kind of wanted to get up and leave, because it was like, now you were a great film with great actors, something cool going on a little bit, but now you're a B movie of just horrible, like that low budget horror film where someone had no business in making a horror film,
Yeah, but see, to me, it's not even just the plan. I mean, yes, that plan was definitely an issue for me, but even before that, the instant of, like, Toby, if the crew was smart, Toby could have been alive, because they're acting like, oh, we don't know how to kill it. We don't know how to kill him. I'm like, yes, you do. You saw a crew member who was infected burn up in the sun. What do you mean you don't know how to kill it? If I were on the ship, the crew would have been alive, because I would have said, let's take out every crate. We're going to bring the crate onto the sun. We're going to destroy each crate, and we're going to knock it into the ocean. Every single crate. During the daytime, we're going to enact this plan. And we're going to make sure that there is sunlight in every aspect in every room. And we're going to take every crate out one by one until Dracula has no place to hide. And then, at that point, you bombard him with the sun. Because, do you know who else? Do you know who actually was smart enough to use the sun to kill Dracula?
Oh yeah, from the film, yeah.
From the Batman, which
the
series is on Netflix, but not the movie, not the Batman v Dracula movie. But
I think it was on sale recently on Vudu or something.
It's on HBO Max, it's on Max right now. But and I get it because it's an older movie, so they can't like replicate sun technology. But they can replicate the sun. They could at least even try a fire. They could have literally burned the ship in the daytime. They could have gotten on a lifeboat and burned the ship.
Yeah.
It
was just like a silly thing, especially like when like clearly Dracula like foils their plans, and then it like clicked in the first mate that he was like, oh, well, now I'll sink the ship. And it was like, why? You just saw that he could fly. you know, like at this point, sinking the ship at nighttime is not going to help you. And it was just kind of like the weird, like now the logic of what people are doing is just not making sense anymore. And it's clearly they're just trying to, you know, Dracula having his way with people at the end. And it was kind of like, that's pointless.
I don't think they knew he could fly until that final fight, because there's that one crew member he flew, but he killed that crew member. I don't think they found out that he could fly until that final fight, because someone's like, oh, he can fly.
Well, yeah, but that's when the first mate, after he gets attacked by Dracula, he runs downstairs and starts chopping at the ship to sink it, you know, and that's why I was like, why are we trying to sink the ship now when we know he can swim?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, not swim when he can fly, you know?
Yeah, and the thing is, it would have made sense if they were further in the middle of the ocean, because at first I was like, if Dracula can fly, why did he need to sneak on the ship? But then I realized because he can't necessarily fly to London in a day, in a night.
Well, not just that, he's, you know, as they kind of suggested, he's weak because he hasn't eaten enough, you know, from his traveling, from when his gypsies drop him off the Demeter. You know, so he's kind of ill. Doesn't really have the strength, but at that time too, I mean, it makes perfect sense why he wouldn't have just left him there, because in a way it was his food source. He couldn't fly far enough and fast enough to, you know, get to London before daylight would come out. So he would kind of need to pace it out, which they kind of reference, right? Like he's pacing, eating them, you know, he's eating one a night, maybe two a night, you know, because he went kind of crazy the first night eating all of the livestock. So now he's having to kind of be careful with how much he's intaking.
Yeah, so yeah, and that's why him flying and like needing it wasn't an issue. It was like one of those things like I thought of at first, but then I thought about more. Like, yeah, okay, but and again, I know this is one issue, but the thing is, it's one issue that affects the whole movie, because they know how to kill him, and no one. And they could have like there's ways they could have figured out a way where they don't completely ignore the sun, where they find a way where they try to use the sun, but it doesn't work. Sometimes I'm just saying, sometimes all you need is a few minutes to cover up a major plot hole and fix the whole like look at Batman v Superman, for example. Look at the Ultimate Edition and the regular cut. It took 30 there's like that desert scene. People were wondering why he framed how people thought it was Superman, but then the Ultimate Edition shows the blow torches. It only took a few minutes to explain that plot hole to people. So what I'm saying, like kind of the point here is that, yeah, your dog's moving around a lot. It's still confusing me because I think it's a white rug. But they could have easily just taken a few seconds to try to use the sun. Find some reason it doesn't work. I would have even taken a bullshit explanation at this point. Sure, it's a bullshit explanation, but at least they tried to think of a way to navigate this vampire's obvious weakness, but like they all acted like they had no idea that the sun would have killed him.
Yeah, it was just kind of like a weird, like I said, plot armor for Dracula to kind of like, we want to show you at his prime where he's just tearing people apart nonstop. And obviously we can't do that in the sun because that's his weakness. And it was like, in a way, at that moment, you know what they could have done? And they kind of hinted that he has this ability. Use the fog. Like to think, okay, we can get Dracula at daytime. We're going to burn him alive. And Dracula, knowing your plan, he brings out the clouds and the storms because he has that power to block out the sun. And then now he's foiled your plan. Like now you're in deep shit, you know? He's revealed a power that you never knew he had. And then all of a sudden you get rid of people like us who think with logic and can't just sit and watch a movie and like play dumb the entire time. I mean, yes, you should go to a movie to get entertained, but at the same time, when you do something so stupid that it's like, you can't help but just go, huh? And I get it's a horror film. Like we often see, don't go in that room, and they always go in that room. This was worse because they've seen what this thing's weakness is twice, and they still decided no logic to it. like when you think about their plan from the very beginning, take away what you know about vampires, it was incredibly flawed. Like, simply, they just didn't talk to the girl who knows anything about Dracula. So they really know nothing. They're just guessing at this point, even though she could have easily been like, this is stupid, and that kind of made her character bad in a way towards the end. I mean, she was a great character. And then when you realize she really didn't help them, she didn't take one moment to be like, guys, that's a bad idea. Like, you're not going to want to do that. Why? We know he can fly in my town. Like, he flies down every time from his castle and like drinks my blood. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Maybe we shouldn't do that shit. There was nothing like that. It was just like she played dumb throughout. Which, once again, I thought the reveal with her was going to be that she was maybe Dracula's bride, and she was under his spell and trying to help him throughout, and kind of leading them on. But instead, they kind of made her this heroic character that, in a way, she was also kind of their downfall, because she didn't really help.
Yeah, no, not at all. Well, because I think she was shocked that he could fly too. I'm like, how did you not know that?
Like I have a hard time believing that, like, Dracula, who, according to this, like she says, he's been around in my town for generations. And if they're following any sense of the book, he's been around for at least 400 years. I have a hard time believing this is the first time Dracula ever decided to do, like.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, if you and I were on that ship, Dracula would have been dead like that, because I had a million plans, you had a million plans, and it just...
He would have been pissed.
I mean, there was one plan I had, which obviously I understand why they didn't use it, because it's kind of like the 65 movie, how we know they're dinosaurs, but they don't know they're dinosaurs because they're not in that time. They're being introduced. Yeah. And it's the thing. They don't know about vampires. They just know about this Dracula creature for the first time. So at first I'm thinking, why not just get garlic or a steak? But again, it's kind of one of those frustrating things that I understand why. Not bad writing there. They obviously didn't know that garlic or a steak would have killed him.
Well, but see, they even kind of... I'll save that. I'll have to save that too, because that was okay. Another part that bugged the hell out of me.
Okay, but yeah, so then we'll definitely get into that topic very soon, actually. But yeah, and again, it's funny because it's not like necessarily a lot of bad writing. It's just a little bit of bad writing that's really bad. Kills the whole.
Here's a good way of putting it, I think, Bat-Dan, as you just said, that like popped up in my brain. There's moments of absolute brilliance with this movie that you're like, this could be one of the greatest Dracula films ever. So it's more noticeable when they do something really, really bad. It was like someone thought of like really cool ideas, but then when they were asked, like that, what's that YouTuber that does the pitch meetings? Yeah, pitch meetings. And he was like, that's a cool idea. And then like, what happens next? And like, I don't know, plot. And he's like, oh, because and the guy's like, I'm gonna need you to get all the way off my back about it. Like, that's that scene. I hope he makes a version of this movie, because he would nail it.
Apparently he just made one of the Meg 2, but yeah, he needs to do this Last Voyage.
I bet that's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, because I was thinking too, it's like, oh my god, Ryan George is gonna have such a that's the guy's name who does the pitch meetings.
Ryan George, okay.
And he's gonna have a really good time and really easy time doing that pitch meeting, because there's so much to make fun of. There's so much.
There's a lot yeah. There's a lot you can go with, and he won't be wrong about a lot of them, unfortunately.
So yeah, and that's what to me kills the story and the writing. Is that even though they had a really good premise, is that again, and maybe a few seconds of again the fog thing, as you said, if they had just done that, that could have increased the movie's rating, like mine and yours, a lot, probably. Just a few seconds, though. It's only a few seconds, but it would have made all the difference. And like, just didn't. Or even like, not even that. They could have even just gone downstairs, and maybe Dracula's powerful in the basement, so that's why they can't go after him. Even though I argue they could have just made holes in the ship, but still.
Yeah.
it would have been better. There's options they could have had, and they didn't do any of them because the writers wanted Dracula to win. And yep.
I need to get all the way. Man needs to get all the way off my back about it. Oh, all right then.
Now I guess so this is a part where I'm going to completely shut up because I know nothing about this part, whereas you know more about this part than me.
Yeah, man. The book's a classic. They definitely, when it comes to this portion of the movie that they were doing, it's in a lot of Dracula films, this is not a portion that people spend a ton of time on. And like I said, it's a very short portion of the book. It's just chapter 7 of the novel, and it starts off. And this was one of the things I was thinking as you said that, how you didn't like how it started with knowing what happens in the aftermath. That's actually how the book starts. Chapter 7 is that they start it with the lighthouse operator sees a ship crashed upon the sand, basically at the beach, and they go running to find out what happened, and a wolf jumps off the ship and runs away, which is Dracula because he can transform. And
a wolf?
Yeah, in the books he can transform into different creatures.
I don't know, that feels like the wrong type of monster to me that turned into a wolf.
Well, I mean, in a way, Dracula is kind of just, you could say he's just kind of the epitome of what was kind of like European evil, where they feared wolves and things like that, because wolves would get him at the end of night, which is why there's the fear of werewolves and stuff like that. But like with Dracula, it's that whole thing of like, well, what happened on the Demeter ship? Like, it was crewed by a good captain, and they find the captain's log, and the book then, the whole chapter then is just literally the captain's log going through each day, literally for like a month, talking about the captain saying like, oh, the crew's in high spirits. They actually used a lot of the dialogue in the movie, and they did tweak and add some different things that happen. But like one of the first things that happens in the book is like the first mate dies. David Desmolation's character, Wojciech, he's like one of the first people that dies. He doesn't last until the very end like he does in the movie, which was like one of the first things they changed. But Dracula in the book, he also fears crosses, like that, the whole like cross, stake in the heart kind of thing. That's Dracula. But he does fear the cross. He does like shy away from it because of its power. So to me, it was very interesting when the captain kind of goes down with a ship at the end of this movie, and he holds the cross to Dracula, and Dracula acts like it's nothing to him. He's like, that's cool, whatever. And tears him apart. While like, so that was like one portion I was like, what? Like that should have some effect on him, because that's kind of the whole theme behind Dracula, is he's kind of the anti-Christ in a way, like, the theme that Christianity and him do not mix, and he fears it because he's in it for eternal damnation now. But like in the book, they did a great job of like the captain at the end, when he's literally the last one, and he kind of says to himself, my job, my mission was to make sure this ship got from basically Romania to London. And I know I'm the last one, and I know I'm going to be the one that dies tonight. So what he does is he ties himself to the steering wheel of the ship and basically says, I've done my service. This is how I die. So when they did that in this movie with Liam Cunningham doing it, I was like, oh my God, like, yeah, that's like straight out of the book. But then they kind of ruined it, because it's supposed to be this like really powerful moment in the book where the captain's like saying, no matter what happens to me, like, I'm going to make sure I complete my mission, even though I know I'm damned here. Like, this is going to be my coffin. And he wasn't going to allow death to stop him from achieving his mission. So when they kind of just did it, this thing of, I'm going to hold on to, which was a weird revelation that he does. He's crazy. He's pissed off that his grandson is dead, to the point now and he's lost meaning and motivation of life to where he's now like, I have one mission, that's to get us to London. When everyone kind of said, we don't want to bring this thing to London. So it kind of like weirded, like, they created some issues with all of a sudden he's like, I'm going to hold myself to this. So, I mean, yeah, so there were different things like that. There is no Toby. There is no woman aboard the ship in the book. Dracula gets everyone, and he's in London, and now he's searching for Nina, which is his long lost love, basically reincarnated. So it was kind of, there were some things they did really well, but everyone definitely dies in the book. There are no, which is why they created new characters like Clemens and the girl to kind of say, hey, there were survivors, but now they did this weird thing. And this is where I say it kind of really irritated me when they started that opening portion, that it's like, this is based on the book. You're seeing the chapter revealed in live action, essentially. This is their story. And then to all of a sudden, like, throw the book out the door and kind of make their own story because Universal wanted this idea that we could do a sequel where Clemens survives, but now he's going to go hunt Dracula. I was like, there's no Clemens hunting Dracula. It's Van Helsing. Van Helsing is in the book. While he's not the Hugh Jackman version of Van Helsing, he's Dr. Abraham Van Helsing, who studies supernatural elements and viruses and tries to understand supernatural through science. Going after Dracula, it's not Clemens saying like, I'm gonna get you, Dracula, because I know you exist. To me, that was like a moment like, why? Like just follow the book. You said you're based on the book, so just have it end where Dracula gets everybody. It was some weird things they did, but those are the biggest points right now that are coming to my mindset of how Dracula and the Bram Stoker book versus the movie kind of differ.
Just how I do want to kind of say about that opening thing where you say the book, or it's like the book starts with that opening act. I think it works though in the book though, because the book's it's a chapter of a longer book.
Yeah. Whereas
this is its own movie, so it doesn't. So then it's just a spoiler.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point about that. Like, to me, yeah, it probably would have been smart if this was the focus about this one chapter to maybe not reveal how the book does. But that was the thing that I was thinking of, like, when they did it, when they started out that way, I was like, ooh, and they even did the little text that said we're following the book here. I was like, this is gonna be like a very good adaptation of this chapter. They're gonna follow it. And then when they kept like getting away from it, I was like, maybe you shouldn't have said you're based on the book, because you're really not. You're something else. You're influenced by the book. You're like most comic book movies.
Exactly. And like Batman v Superman is influenced by the Dark Knight Returns. It's not based on the Dark Knight Returns, but it's still a really good book because it's not pretending, or good movie because it's not pretending to be based on that. Whereas this, I guess the book is pretending to be based on that, and it's very loosely based on it. So I can understand your sentiment there.
Yeah, I think it was just like, it was not the right way to kind of set expectations. Like, granted, Dracula is one of the oldest tales. Like you said, 1897 was when the first book came out. The book came out. And, so everyone, it's kind of like, what's like Batman. You could say Batman to anyone, and if they haven't read a comic or seen a movie, they probably have heard of Batman. Superman, same deal, right? It's the same thing with Dracula. If you've never read the book, if you've never seen a movie, you probably know Dracula still, because it's an iconic name that has instilled fear throughout generations. He's a part of pop culture. And it's like one of those scenes where you can't like really give you surprises about Dracula. You kind of know what you're going to expect. And here they were like, we're based on the book, but really the only thing we're going to stick to is every now and then you're going to hear a captain's log dialogue to it. But there you go. I hope you enjoy. Like, just don't say you're don't say you're the book. It would be bad.
Again, maybe it would have worked better if it was its own, they just did its own movie.
Yeah,
And just,
it would have been better if they just never even tried to say we're the book, we're the book movie, and here's how it unfolds, and just to say we're a movie that gets a lot of its ideas from this portion of the chapter, and then go ham, go crazy, do shit that is absolutely nuts that we've never seen Dracula do before. But the fact that it was basically a mixture of the two, but they expanded in ways that didn't really elevate the chapter. I would say the creative liberties that they took didn't add anything to the story except for their own kind of weird whatever they were trying to say with like Clemens and his character and his background story, and the Anna and stuff. Like, they were cool elements, but they didn't give it the ending arc that was like satisfying in a way. It was kind of like you added them just to create kind of a problem for Dracula, because now you have someone that can think and kind of work against Dracula's virus of drinking people's blood and turning them into vampires. And you also have someone who knows Dracula, but she serves no purpose because she gives them no information about Dracula other than his name is Dracula and he's super bad.
well, to be fair, Clemens is not going to be that much of a threat to Dracula. I mean, if he can't even figure out that the son killed him, there's no way he's going to be able to stop Dracula.
Right, which is why like he's at the bar and he's just like, hey, I heard you're searching for me, and I wanted you to know I'm not afraid. The fact that Dracula is just like, you were saying that you were going to kill me? Cool. Well, like, how did that work for you on the ship? You're an idiot.
See, I could have killed Dracula. You could have killed Dracula. I would have made Dracula would have been my bitch if I was on that ship.
Just saying.
Because I knew his weakness.
Bat-Dan 1, Dracula 0.
And you could have beaten him too, Trey. You could have beaten him too.
I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
I mean, any Ryan George would have beaten him too. He would have had no problem. But anyone who with a brain would have beaten Dracula, because the movie did not give him obvious counters to the weaknesses that he obviously had.
Yeah.
Even what's her name again?
Anna.
Your dog?
Oh wait, who?
Your dog behind you.
Oh, it's Ellie. Yeah.
Ellie. Okay, that's what. Ellie could have beat Dracula too.
No, she's an idiot. She's an lovable idiot, but she's an idiot dog. She'd be definitely done faster than the actual dog in the movie. If anything, she'd be like, friend, pets, and Jackie would be like, I can't tell. Are you like excited to see me, or do you think I'm gonna eat you right now? Like, maybe Dracula would probably friend her. Actually, you know what? She probably would live, because he'd be like, you're just pleasant. You're just happy to see me all the time. Like, even though I want to eat you. So I'll just keep you around in case if I ever like starve.
Yeah, so I guess, do you have any other thing to wrap up the movie versus book topic?
The book chapter kind of goes the more mysterious route. They never reveal that it's Dracula that was on the Demeter, but it really goes through that paranoia thriller routes, where that made it very exciting and interesting in the book, rather than the movie kind of used Dracula as a way to get people in the theaters, but it didn't have the same impact that Dracula does in the book, I guess you could say. Didn't have the fangs, to the bite.
And on that note, on that pun, I guess we're going to go into a topic I'm very passionate about. Dracula v. Winnie the Pooh. Who had the better horror movie of 2023? And and I'm not just saying this to troll Trey, by the way. I legitimately mean this. I think Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey was a better written film than Dracula, because Pooh did not have obvious weaknesses that they were too stupid to explore. I mean, they could have used guns, but like, there weren't obvious points where they were able to just shoot him. He had super strength. They weren't ignoring there weren't as many gaps, and there were some gaps in logic in Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, make no mistake, but nowhere near as many gaps of logic or bad gaps of logic in this movie. And Winnie the Pooh was just in my opinion, he was just a better villain. He had that the way there was all this complex humanity in him, the conflict he had, and when he does say his one line, "You laughed." One, I can understand him. I don't need subtitles. But two, it was really intimidating right there. So that really worked for me. And again, there were stupid moments, sure, but they didn't eat anything as bad as what we saw with Dracula and the Sun, with ignoring the sun. So yes, I think that Winnie the Pooh was a much better movie than Last Voyage. And if put it like this, if you can and plus it was shorter too, so there's not pacing issues. There's never a moment where I was watching Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey that I was bored. So in my personal opinion, if you can watch The Last Voyage, then you can watch Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. That's just what I'm gonna say about that. I was gonna do that to you, Trey. Come on.
If it's ever free on a streaming service, I will watch the Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey with you. But I think it's so batshit crazy that I might just shoot myself.
Seriously, I'm serious about this when I say this. I'm not just saying this to troll you. I really do think that Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey was the better horror film of 2023.
Did you ever see the Pope's Exorcist though?
No, I mean of the two movies I've seen in 2023.
Oh, of the two, okay, yeah. Pope's Exorcist wasn't bad. I never saw Megan or Megan, whatever you call it. Pope's Exorcist wasn't bad. That didn't have a ton of jump scares, but the story was fascinating to me. I guess we'll have to see what The Nun does. The Nun 2 with the new, and obviously The Exorcist. I don't know if I could handle The Exorcist. Sarah wants to go see it, and I ain't about The Exorcist. The Conjuring was about as far as I was willing to go because it was a connected universe and it seemed like really good storytelling, and it is. So that's why I'm stuck with The Nun 2. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm scared. No, Pooh would get him stuck in honey and have him burn in sunlight.
Yeah, Dracula. In fact, I think I actually asked the Winnie the Pooh official Twitter account. I forgot exactly did he say. I'm sorry. I'm still going to call it Twitter, honestly.
Oh, was it X now? Yeah, I still call it Twitter too.
Yeah. I gotta look up exactly what he said. Because I actually asked that account, and okay, this is what Pooh said. Me, Dracula only drinks blood. So, who would win right there? So, one horror film I'm kind of excited to see is Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, that's based on the video games, right?
Yes. I've never played the video games themselves, but I watch Markiplier on YouTube. He's a video. I don't know if you know him. He's a video game. He's like one of the big gamer YouTube channels, like the ones who can live off YouTube. And basically, all my knowledge of Five Nights at Freddy's comes from watching his videos.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to check it out because I know nothing about. When I saw the poster where I work and the trailer when it came out, and I was like, that's just crazy. But they have a good actor in it. I'm totally spaced his name. I know he played PETA in the Hunger Games, so I imagine it's gonna be very good if it has him in it.
Yes. Yeah, so yeah, I think it could be decent. There's some stuff I'm kind of worried about though, because the whole point of Five Nights at Freddy's is that the guy works in Five Nights at Freddy's, and the whole point, like the premise of like the first game, like the first Five Nights at Freddy's, is that from 12 to 6, the animatronics are alive, and if they get to you, you die. So you have to close the doors to get to them, so they don't get to you, but there's limited power, so you can't just keep the doors closed. So seeing the animatronics going out and about in the trailer kind of concerns me a little bit. So We'll see. We'll see how that goes. That's the always thing with video game adaptations. They can be really good or they can really suck. So, but overall, yes, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey was the better horror film than Last Voyage. Pooh beats Dracula in a fight and in quality of movies.
That's some fighting words. I think Dracula would drain Winnie the Pooh. I think he would. He would lay out some honey at night. Pooh would come in trying to drink the honey. And then Dracula just like, ha!
Not this Pooh. This Pooh is too... The Disney naive Pooh? Yeah, no, that Pooh gets killed. This Pooh...
But if Ian McGregor as Christopher Robin shows up, then all of a sudden he's like, hello there, and he wins easily.
No, he wasn't that. Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan's much more clever than Ewan McGregor as Christopher Robin.
That's because it'd be a multiverse scene. He'd show up as Christopher Robin, but then he would remember that he's Obi-Wan Kenobi and kill everybody.
Jedi mind tricks don't only work on the weak-minded, and Pooh's not weak-minded. So, but anyway, so yeah, that's definitely. Oh, and okay, so
Necron.
What up, El Necron? So, what point in the conversation did this pop up?
I'm
legitimately here. That I said that Winnie the Pooh was better. Probably that I said Winnie the Pooh was better. If that's what you're referring to, correct?
Though Necron liked he liked the last voyage of the Demeter, which is awesome. And I think one thing I should say, because some people thought when I did my review, they're like, oh man, you really didn't like this. And no, I liked it. It just wasn't as good as I wanted a film that was going to be like in the 8s or 9s for a score. And I didn't like it that much. And that's why I was so disappointed, because I was like so freaking excited for this film. Like I was like literally just like, this could be one of the best Dracula themes ever. And I didn't get that. I didn't get the best Dracula film ever. I got, in my opinion, a mediocre Dracula film that I'll still watch every Halloween. Yeah, every time Sarah and I do our October marathon movies, yeah, that one's going to be in the list. But it's not going to be the film that if I don't watch it in October, I'll like be sad, because I have certain Halloween films that I have to watch. Like every October 31st, Sarah and I watch Van Helsing. That is our Halloween movie every year.
If you're watching a series of Halloween movies, does The Nightmare Before Christmas to you count as Halloween or Christmas?
I can't stand that movie, Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah, I don't even watch it at all.
No.
Yeah, it's one of there's some Tim Burton films I like, and there's some films I just can't stand, and that is like one of them. I don't know why. I remember watching it and I was just like, I'm bored. I don't like it.
Oh, well, I don't know. I like that film. I think it's really good. And technically Tim Burton doesn't direct that film.
No, he doesn't, but it's very is that Danny Elfman who does the music and acting? I can't remember what does Tim Burton do exactly in that one, because it's definitely his style.
I think he's a writer, and I think he's one of the producers.
Okay.
But yeah, I still call Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, even though he doesn't direct it.
Right. Yeah. It's just not. I would probably say it's a Halloween film from what I recall of it, but I don't know. I guess for me, Christmas is like a very sacred thing that I don't screw with Christmas. You know, I don't like a film that tries to make Christmas like a horror thing. So I think that's like, for me, like during Christmas time, I like joy. I like fun. I like the innocence of wonder when it comes to Santa Claus and flying reindeer and stuff like that. Yeah. That's where you get very innocent movie going Trey, who likes to be very childlike with his wonder of, you know, Christmas films and stuff like that. But I don't like to mess with it. I don't like to mess with that innocence during that time.
Christmas there are Christmas horror stories, even the scary ghost stories and tales of the glory. So it was a thing.
Yeah.
Plus there's Krampus too, who is a Christmas figure and he's a monster.
Yeah, I did watch the Krampus film because that was done by Michael Dougherty, who did the Godzilla King of the Monsters film. I did watch that one because it's not exactly Christmas it is Christmas, but it's through the German ideology of what Christmas is and what it means to be a bad child. So it was very interesting. I did enjoy that movie. I do check it out every now and then when I'm looking for something different during Christmas time, but it's not like a film that I would be like, I have to watch this every Christmas winter time, So no Silent Night, Deadly Night for Trey. Was that the new Santa Claus thing that had the guy who played Hellboy recently is in Stranger Things? I did want to watch that one. Because it just looked batshit crazy, but it's once again, I sometimes I do like see kind of the crazy Christmas, like Die Hard. Like Die Hard is a Christmas film that is not exactly the innocence of Christmas, but it's also kind of just a badass film that I cannot watch it. It's amazing. But I don't know. I'll have to see what that one is, Necron. I don't know.
I'm talking Christmas in August. My fault for bringing that up. But I'm someone who does it. Like, I'm the one who wants to yell at the neighbors who leave their Christmas stuff up in January. That's how I am about Christmas.
Well, I can't say for that, because when I buy a Christmas tree, I try to keep that sucker alive as long as possible because I just like having a Christmas tree. I don't need the lights on it and everything, but I like, once I have that pine tree up in our house, I will leave that thing until it's like breaking needles all over the floor. Now, Super Bro Corey, that man, the moment November 1st hits, Christmas music and decorations for like the next 5 months. That man, talk to Corey about Christmas sometime. That man has a problem. And he's one of those people that when it's Christmas morning, he will avoid opening Christmas gifts for as long as he possibly can because he doesn't want Christmas to end. He's crazy.
I hope if I ever see Christmas decorations up at his house in October or January, past the 6th, I'll give them epiphany. I'll probably burn down his house. That's my thing with Christmas decorations. When I see them up, I'll just burn the house.
I would advise against that. He'd come at you like Taken, Liam Neeson you all the way.
Yeah, well, you know what? He's still not still scarier than the Dracula that we saw in this movie. And I guess kind of overall, I know you kind of gave that dirty score to Dracula, but just so that for the sake, or to The Last Voyage, but just any final thoughts, and you can just say your rating again, so that's on here too.
I think it was a 6. Was that the one that I gave a 6.9, and then Sarah reacted funny? Like,
yeah,
that woman's so dirty. She's so dirty.
I had the same reaction.
Good God, I was an innocent 6.9, and you guys had to come in there and make it naughty. Yeah, no, to me, it's a 6.9 film. I think it could, just in terms of how great the performance is, it could be a 7 film, but I was just disappointed with it. I just couldn't help but leave the theater being like, oh man, it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. But it's a solid film nonetheless. I've seen far worse vampire films. Absolutely. Yeah, I enjoy it. It's a good film, but it's not great like I was hoping.
Well, for me, you're so more generous than me because I give it a 6. I'm giving it a 6.519283889 out of 10 because I can't. The cast is what gives it the high score that it got, and the design of Dracula. But the story and the writing, I just could not stand. It's like, use the frickin' sun to kill Dracula. So, yeah. That's
still a solid score.
Yeah, exactly. See, Sox gets it too. I'm going to change your score, Trey. You gave it a 6.89. We'll just say that.
No, now I'm gonna give it a 6.96969696969696969.
What's that? Trey's gone?
Hey man, I speak the truth.
So what do you have coming up, Trey? Are you gonna tell any more dirty humor in your next videos?
Well, you never know when it comes to Wonder Wife. She is on a camping trip this weekend with her mom. She does an annual camping trip. So I will be going to see Blue Beetle. And as we say for our fellow Snyderverse fans who just don't want to watch anything DCU related, it's kind of going to be, at least in your guys' eyes, for our new series, we watch them so you don't have to. And we're going to review it. I'm going to look at it in many different ways, especially when it comes to like all future DCU films, because obviously I would prefer the Snyderverse. There's going to be the one portion of my review where I look at it as a DC fan and somebody who's just reviewing a movie. And then there's going to be the other portion of me that says, was this the right move? At this time for DC. I will say I'm a little nervous about the box office with it because I know they said $15 million for an opening, which is disastrous for any superhero film in today's world. But I checked my theaters all around here in Colorado for opening weekend, and it's empty.
Yeah, DC is not doing well right now as a brand, and
but yeah, in terms of everything that's coming up on our channel, first off, I just want to say, Bat Dan, thank you so much for having me on, man. I was excited when you reached out to me and asked if I'd be willing to join you for a all night Dracula film review of this crazy film. But it's always a blast, brother. And thank you so much for letting us hang out with you today. What's coming up on the Bat-Channel, the Blue Beetle review. Corey and I are working on a big season 3 anniversary to start, kick off our new season 4. Got some big things coming to our channel that's going to take us to the next level that the Battalion community should be really excited for, which, man, I gotta say, I noticed I started using Battalion and like a week later, DC started the whole like Blue Beetle Battalion. I was like, son of a gun, like back off, like it's mine, I'm taking it. But hey man, it's all part of fun. It'll help boost our community even more because they'll be like, what's this Bat-Channel Battalion? It's far better than Blue Beetle. I don't know, we'll see. I do like Zolo Maridueña a lot from Cobra Kai, so I hope it's a good film just for his sake because I think he's a great actor.
Yeah, I'm sure I have decent expectations for it. I mean, so I'll get into that soon, but so I have 2 videos coming up on my channel this weekend, actually. I have my second episode of Marvelous Discussions with Sox Bulletin over here, where we are getting ready. So we're preparing for Loki season 2. So we just reviewed Thor, and now we're going to review the Avengers because Loki is the bad guy of that movie. So we have that coming up. I'm really excited about this new show. And it seems like Replay Crew really seemed to love the Thor review. So despite any technical issues that went on during that time, which again, that happens to the live stream now and again. And then after that, for me, I'm going to see Blue Beetle. I'm actually going to do I'm seeing it tomorrow because I have a half day tomorrow because of summer hours. So I'm going to be seeing Blue Beetle in the afternoon tomorrow. So that'll be my fun Friday afternoon activity. Yeah, and I'm actually going to be reviewing it with Josh Herrera, and we're going to give our spoiler review on Monday, or not Monday, awesome. Sunday. So I'm really excited for that. And I'm going to say this, okay. If you just don't want to see the movie, yeah, and again, Sox, if it happens, it happens. Internet, we all have internet issues. But I'm going to say this. There's a lot of people who feel like they need to boycott this film for Zack Snyder. And here's what I'm going to say. No, Zack Snyder endorsing the movie does not mean that you have to see it yourself. But don't not see it because you think you have to for the sake of the Snyderverse. because Zack Snyder is seeing it. Just watch the movie. Just watch the trailer and decide if the movie's going to be good or not. That's it. That's all. That's all that should matter to you. And look, I was on the boycott Blue Beetle train. There's previous videos. I said it on Silstream, and I'm off that train now because I just want to see a good DC movie that I will enjoy. And the whole point of the Cell movement is so that we can just campaign for the Snyderverse separately without campaigning for another DC movie to fail. And so this is what's really confusing though, is that James Gunn is like, it's not the first DCU movie, but it's going to be, but basically what will happen is that essentially what's supposedly going on right now is that it's not a DCU movie, but if it does well, the actor will essentially be a variant Blue Beetle in his DCU. So it won't be in that same continuity, which is really confusing. Should just be part of the DCU. I'm just gonna say it should just be part of the DCU so that they can
it shows the lack of confidence to say some shit like that, on Gunn's part. And he should be the biggest promoter of DC. He should be like Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige, even if it is trash, Kevin Feige is saying, go see Marvel.
The only reason part of me hopes it fails is because I don't want The Flash to be the only film that fails. Because, if other DC movies fail, not just The Flash, then I feel less bad about The Flash failing.
I don't think DC has to worry too much about that. I think all the DC films this year are I think Aquaman 2 is even gonna struggle.
So, yep, exactly, Necron. That's what's going on. So, again, just sell all the way, focus on the positive, because if you've seen Night Shift, there's some very good news that Mikey Sutton has said, and he brought up a good point. I forgot the exact analogy he uses, but if you have a hot new girlfriend, you don't need to worry about what your ex is doing. So, Netflix gives us good DC, good Snyderverse content. James Gunn can do whatever he wants, as far as I'm concerned after that. So as long as it doesn't affect the Snyderverse on Netflix, none of that matters. So, yeah. Anyways, and again, thanks, Trey, for coming on. I really enjoyed talking about this movie with you. And if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell for more unique takes and interesting thoughts. And you can catch me on, again, same bat time.
Same Bat Dance thoughts.
And lastly, have a bat-tastic day.